Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here with an ultimate preview of WWE Saturday night's main event. We're also going to discuss everything that happened in the world of WWE as it took a trek along the Carolinas, North Carolina and South Carolina, delivering, spoiler alert, two of the best crowds that WWE has had in quite some time. This is episode 740 of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, which means we are just 10 shows away from vintage Chris Vanini paying off his bet and rapping a John Cena entrance theme right here live on the program. Wanted to mention that right off the top to make sure he cannot escape it. As we get into this show, allow me to remind you that Getting Over can be found on YouTube at Getting Overcast. So please head over there, hit the subscribe button, and listen to our episodes. If you don't listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can also get video clips from our interviews and full-length video interviews all on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can also send in questions and comments for the show. And this week on Saturday, ahead of Saturday night's main event, you'll have an opportunity to vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding that special TV event. So again, follow us on Twitter at Getting Overcast, Blue Sky at Getting Over. Vintage, welcome to the show. As we have kind of discussed offline a bit, Silver King is buzzing from what my New York Knicks have been accomplishing in the NBA playoffs. The mood is up. I have some frustrations going on in my personal life regarding trying to get a new car, which is absolutely killing me, especially given the truncated time period, given what's happening June 1st here in the United States. But the vibes are good right here on Getting Over, and I hope you're feeling them.
I'm feeling them because I'm coming to you live from New York City right now. I'm a couple blocks away from Madison Square Garden. I'm here for an athletic college football staff meeting. We will be here Wednesday night when the Knicks play. Get-in price is several $100s. I will not be going to the game.
But it's not your team, but you should go still.
This is it's also I was gonna go check out the outdoor watch party, but I think it's gonna rain all day Wednesday and all night. So I don't know how that's gonna go. But this is this is wrestling right now. We got Tyrese Halliburton on Monday Night Raw again talking about the Knicks, so we can talk about it.
I mean, WWE really lucked into something here. It's not that surprising that these two teams are here. Certainly the Knicks weren't predicted to go this far. It was, supposed to be the team from Massachusetts, which I don't like to mention verbally on this podcast or anywhere else. They were supposed to be there, and it's understandable. They were, the reigning champions kind of defending their title in these playoffs. But anyone who watched the Knicks-Pacers series last year knows that if New York was healthy, if Jalen Brunson was healthy, they probably beat Indiana in that series and go on to the Eastern Conference Finals that year. So the fact that they're back with a refreshed team, it's pretty interesting. Speaking of Tyrese Halliburton, I was going to talk about this later, but might as well mention it now. He was on Raw Monday night, didn't actually say anything. They were promoting a playable character for the WWE 2K video game, but a bet was made, speaking of bets, between Knicks fan Michael Cole and Pacers fan Pat McAfee. I told you all that Cole was great and McAfee was trash, but the loser dresses like the winner for an entire episode of Raw. So Cole would wear a tank top or McAfee would wear an entire suit. And I gotta say, that wager is really not that even. We've seen McAfee in a suit or a tuxedo, because remember he wore the tuxedo top with the pants, the shorts before at WrestleMania where he and Cole kind of got into it. So we've seen McAfee in a suit or a tuxedo before. It's Cole wearing a tank top that theoretically would be embarrassing, except we've seen him wear much less wrestling in the ring previously. So I'm not really sure much is on the line here. I think our wager over John Cena winning the WWE Championship is much better than this one.
Yes, our bet was much better, even though I lost.
Yeah, no question about that whatsoever. And then I was thinking, Chris, I'm like, who actually, outside of Pacers fans, but maybe even not Pacers fans, like who actually wants to play as Halliburton in a wrestling video game? And then I paused for a second and I realized if he's in the game, that means I could make a Jalen Brunson character and beat the ever-loving shit out of him. So maybe I actually need to get a system after all.
There you go.
There you go. Well, look, we have a lot to cover here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, and I promise you, all of that is coming up.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And we hit the first item already, so let's go to the second. WWE has inked some of the top talent that regularly appears in AAA to contracts in their new company. A source told us that this week. The two most notable names are the ones being advertised for Worlds Collide, no surprise, El Hijo del Vikingo and Psycho Clown, who are respectively the best young wrestler and one of AAA's active legends who's been there since 2006. It's also expected that Rey Fenix Penta and Los Garza will all wrestle on Worlds Collide. We're not that sure about Santos Escobar, but Rey Mysterio was supposed to be on the show. He's expected to appear nevertheless. We didn't have a chance to do a buymeacoffee.com/gettingover update this week. We will mention that in a moment. I just had some personal stuff going on. Really, it was the car search that was problematic. So I just figured I would share that on the show. I'm not sure why coming this weekend. There was another report about internal reactions to The Rock trying to push Cody Rhodes heel. That's not happening. And I don't know what else to tell you besides that. Karrion Kross's new t-shirt, it has not left the top 3 among WWE sales over the last 2 weeks for whatever that's worth. And I guess, Chris, it's not worth that much because, spoiler alert, he was again completely left off Raw on Monday night. I know they are building multiple major shows at once. When you're doing a Saturday night's main event and a Money in the Bank build simultaneously, and you have one on Saturday and really one the next Saturday, or maybe it's 2 weeks after that, and someone is not actively factored into booking, it is tough to shoehorn them in to what you're doing on TV. LA Knight told us this in an interview a couple years ago, you'll remember, where he said, hey, I got way hotter than they expected, and they tried to get me on TV more, but they couldn't give me something significant to chew on because they had other plans they had to get through first. So I understand it to a degree with Kross. At the same time, this guy went from regular backstage fixture on the road to WrestleMania to now completely off TV, despite getting a huge pop at WrestleMania and a big pop last week when he made an entrance for main event, not Saturday night's main event, that little shitty main event show. He had a match against Tyler Bate. He got a huge pop. He's trending on social media. How can you not get him into some backstage segments, Chris? I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's the only question. I mean, I would not compare Karrion Kross's level of over to what LA Knight was back then, but it is, I mean, it's certainly got to be demoralizing for someone to get attention, to get sales in merchandise, and not have anything around. It's been a month and a half since WrestleMania now, a little more than a month.
No, just a month.
And very, very little. Not to say that they aren't going to do anything with him. They still might. It could be like you said, it just may take a little bit of time. But as with many things in WWE right now, it always feels like they don't take advantage of a moment. Yeah. And LA Knight was an example of that we felt at the time.
Yeah, and again, I do suggest you going back and listening to that interview. I believe we also cut that clip and put it on YouTube at Getting Overcast, where he basically says, yes, they recognized it. They told me they were going to push me, but they had other things to do. They can't put me in an Intercontinental Championship program when they have plans for the Intercontinental Championship that are actively happening. So they had to figure out a way to get him in after the fact. And he said that's why his push was delayed a little bit. And he understood it because he's been in the industry for a long time. And I'm sure Kross does too. But at least with Knight, they were getting him on TV regularly and taking advantage of that, even if he wasn't doing much. Kross has just disappeared. And it's just why? He cut that awesome promo on the Raw recap that they did that we actually played in full on the show. You would think the guy would be on TV the next week. And instead, they just let that go and fizzle out. And it's really, really frustrating. I wanted to mention that women actually main evented all 3 WWE shows last week, Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. It's actually not that unique because it's been happening a lot over the last year and a half. But nevertheless, fair to point out when it does happen because it's not a weekly occurrence. And that really wraps up the news, Chris. Before we get into the rest of the show, I just wanted to take a moment and discuss SmackDown and Raw in their totality because when shows are rough and crowds are bad, we take the time to criticize them. This week was the opposite in pretty much every way. Friday night was easily the best SmackDown since WrestleMania, maybe of the entire year, when you consider the storytelling and match quality and the names that were missing from that show, not having Cody Rhodes there, obviously, or John Cena for that matter. There was some repetitiveness, but there were fresh faces featured and plenty of tremendous in-ring action. The crowd in Greensboro met the moment, and they left nothing to be desired. They actively made the show better. They even popped for Motor City Machine Guns, so credit to them. Monday night in Greenville, the crowd was more hot and cold, but when they were hot, my Lord, they were white hot. The pops that Rhea Ripley and CM Punk got on that show, you would have thought WWE was in Madison Square Garden and they were coming back after months off. It was wild. After the Midwest and Kentucky, they massively disappointed the last couple of weeks. WWE went through that lull. The Carolinas came through in a major way. WWE should now actually consider putting some go-homes for bigger shows at these sites. If the crowds are going to react like this to a mid-May TV show like they did on Friday and Monday, if Cody Rhodes had come out to that arena on Monday night, the arena might have imploded. Raw was similar to SmackDown in that it's surprisingly focused on high-quality wrestling. It also developed some fresh storylines. But all in all, outside of the singular Raw after WrestleMania episode, this was the best week of WWE TV, top to bottom, over the last month.
Yes, and the reason we talk about crowds so much on this show is because these last two episodes of SmackDown and Raw were the example of how a great crowd elevates everything. Mm-hmm. It can take an okay show into a really good show. It can take something not so great to make it pretty good. It takes something that's good into great and amazing. And yes, absolutely want to shout out both of those two crowds, especially Greenville on Raw. The shows were more enjoyable to watch because of the fan participation. That's what pro wrestling is all about. That's why it works.
Yeah, they were more enjoyable to watch. What WWE was trying to push from a character and storytelling standpoint hit harder because there was an actual reaction to it. And you're just more engaged in the episode as a viewer at home because you see people having fun. If you're watching a match and it's quiet, you may pick up your phone or work on the computer a little bit because maybe nothing's happening. But if you hear people popping or chanting, guess what you're doing? You're putting your phone down, you're closing your computer, and you're making sure you watch the screen. And that's just the way things are in 2025. I don't think we need to hide from the fact that people do multiple things while they watch wrestling these days. Silver King, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, is there taking notes and fully engaged in the screen, which is why when crowds are bad and shows are hurt by them, it affects me more and I criticize it more, versus when they're hot and it makes the job part of this, the work of putting the show together, feel less like work. It's like, oh, I get to share this awesome experience with people, versus the otherwise when crowds are down or shows are bad. And that's true whether it's WWE, AEW, or really any other company. Now, Chris, we have a ton of show left. Before we get to that, I do need to remind everyone that here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
it's all about Defy.
So please head over to Apple Podcast and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And we got a new one from CRM Punk. 5-star analysis, of course, 5 stars. I was familiar with Adam's work from Only Gators and Chris's work from The Athletic, so I've been wanting to listen for a while. Finally, a few months ago, I took the plunge. I love the detailed recaps, reviews, previews, and predictions. Thanks for hours of enjoyment that kept me from going insane in rush hour traffic. I appreciated the Christina Aguilera talk in the most recent episode as it brought me back to my UF days at Wrights Union Food Court, where many dudes were distracted from their Subway and Wendy's by the dirty music video on the TVs. Anyway, keep up the great work. So that comment just means a lot to me, that review, I should say, because certainly I wasn't in college when Christina Aguilera and the dirty music video were out. I was in, I want to say, high school when that was all happening. And that dates me, of course. I'm washed. But the fact that he's mentioning Wrights Union and those specific restaurants in the Wrights Union Food Court, which has grown and changed drastically. Anyone who's currently attending Florida, it is not what it used to be. There used to be a Little Caesars that was like in the basement of this rights union, which is like the student union at the college, where you couldn't even find it. And they would, if you called, they would actually do delivery to the dorms. You could get a pizza or crazy bread or whatever, and they would be at your door in like 4 minutes. It was wild. There was a Taco Bell that didn't really come across like a Taco Bell, but the Wendy's and Subway were pretty much what everyone ate because that was considered high dining, back in the 2000s, early 2000s. So that just means a lot, a little camaraderie there. And I also just appreciate the review. You follow the Gators work that I do. By the way, everyone, I am the founder of a Florida Gators website. If you happen to like the team, onlygators.com, at onlygators on Twitter, and at Gators, I got that name, on Blue Sky. So go check that out. Of course, Chris works for The Athletic, so it just meant a lot to get that review, CRM Punk. We appreciate it, and we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
Also, please don't forget, here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. And we have a brand new subscriber, Guru Gav, who wrote in, been a longtime listener since day one-ish. Love how Vintage and Silver King break down news, matches, and storylines in such an entertaining fashion. Shout out from Australia. Shout out to you. We greatly appreciate you signing up and financially supporting the continuation of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Guru Gav, we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
Also want to give a shout out. This is weird to say. I had a dream last night that I was in London.
Okay.
And someone came up to me and said they were a big fan of the pod and that they had been subscribed to the Buy Me a Coffee for a couple of months now.
Okay.
So shout out to this completely imaginary person that showed up in my dream last night. We acknowledge you.
Dream Demon for Vintage, we acknowledge you, I guess.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
We'll see if that actually happens if you ever make it to London, and maybe just a premonition as opposed to something else. Now, look, we're going to shake things up a little bit this week on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast because there was a show-long storyline on Raw that encompassed the entire episode, and it largely built to 2 matches on Saturday night's main event. So, in a rare move, we're not only going to kick off this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast with your WWE Saturday night's main event Ultimate Preview, we're going to do it simultaneously as we slide into the main event.
This is the main event.
So because, 2 of the 4 matches on Saturday night's main event were completely involved in the major storyline on Raw, we're going to hit both of those off the top together. The 2 matches, Chris, CM Punk and Sami Zayn against Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, and the World Heavyweight Championship, Jey Uso defending against Logan Paul. So Logan opened Raw promising to win the title. To his credit, he got great heat telling the fans not to yeet. He bragged about being a success faster than Jey and thrice knocking him out cold. Gunther interrupted, saying fans should respect Paul more than they do because he's self-made, and him becoming champion would be great for business. Logan ate all this up, but Gunther called him a non-wrestler and said that him beating Jey would be a personal disrespect to him because that's Gunther's job to achieve. He said he respected Pat McAfee more as a competitor and would eat Logan alive if he wins the title. Gunther slammed the mic down, walked away, leading Jey to catch Logan with a super kick and say his catchphrase, and that was the end of the segment. And you know what? What I'm going to say may shock you here, Chris. It actually kind of gives me douche chills to even think that in a segment involving the most over babyface in the company and one of the greatest wrestlers in the entire world, Logan Paul was the standout. Now, maybe it was purposefully built that way, but he actually cut an original promo and drew legitimate heat because of it. He had tweeted before the show that Netflix was going to let him cook on Raw, to which I suggested he only cooks with a microwave because all he does is reheat old promos. But this was far better than that. At the same time, he didn't actually cook in any way. It was very boilerplate, but it was at least unique. The Gunther portion of it just felt like it was wedged and shoehorned into this for continuity from one feud to another because of the truncated time period. And Jey basically did nothing. All you're going to do to a guy who has knocked you out thrice is hit one super kick. You're not going to do an Uso splash. You're not going to lift him for a spear. Imagine if Stone Cold ran in to attack a heel, did a Thez press, and then just left the ring. So I thought that was disappointing from Jey. So that's why Logan was the one who stood out for me in this segment, though I did like what Gunther tried to do, but it just felt ham-fisted.
Did you say goose chills?
Douche chills.
Okay. I've never heard that phrase before.
Well, I actually believe, so it's obviously goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
But I believe, I could be wrong, I'll Google it while you speak. I think some people do say goose chills, but no, I said douche chills. Made me feel like a douche to praise Logan.
Okay. I've heard goose pimples as well.
Maybe it's goose pimples I'm thinking about.
Were you slapping your forearm there? When
I didn't feel the mana for Logan. No, I did not feel the mana.
This segment was a prime example of how a hot crowd makes something better. Because Logan Paul immediately realized he was getting some heat for the no yeet thing and leaned into it and got the crowd to do it more, which is why he's a really good promo. And just in terms of, he's really good at feeding off the crowd and leaning into something that's working. And he's recently been in some places where the crowd's not great and it has gone over like a wet fart. So credit to him for doing that. This whole thing to me did a good enough job to make you think at least a little bit that Logan Paul could win, at least when the segment was over. They put in the effort to really give us the possibility of Logan Paul versus Gunther at Money in the Bank. You know, we'll get to the Ultimate Preview and our picks. Probably not picking Logan Paul.
Well, we're in the Ultimate Preview technically, but yes, go ahead.
But it wasn't presented as if it was a foregone conclusion. They put some extra work into that to play it all out. And as a viewer, I appreciated that. And then when it ended with Jey on top again at that moment, I'm thinking,
oh no,
maybe probably not, but like maybe here. And that was ultimately the goal of the segment for me. And it did its job.
Yeah, it did its job. Did you believe that Logan was, I don't want to say the star of the segment, but the standout of the three? Like, did you agree with that or no?
He got the most heat. I mean, he did a really good job. Like I said, there was nothing like amazing that he said, and some of it was repeated, but it was just really good crowd work. He's really good with the cameras too. There was one moment he turns away from the hard cam very quickly because he realizes the hard cam is not on, right to the camera to his right to continue his promo. Like, he's very talented in that entertainment space. The whole thing was Gunther putting him over and Logan putting himself over. So, like, they built it up well. And Gunther was really strong here, too, by the way. Like, it wasn't long ago that Gunther was, like, not much of a promo.
Right.
And now he is totally captivating in the way he went about this. I thought Gunther was fantastic here, too. Was Logan Paul kind of presented the best? Yes. But everybody, I thought, did a really good job.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I said, Gunther did a real nice job wedging himself into this. And the point of all of this is what you said. I'm kind of going to repeat you a little bit. But they're jamming so much into such a short window that they cannot make every match result prior to the last one a foregone conclusion. Like, if Rollins is out there, Seth Rollins, and we're going to talk about him momentarily, saying, I want the World Heavyweight Championship, Jey, I'm coming after you, and he has two opponents before him, then you are just saying, well, clearly he's going to beat those two guys if Rollins is only challenging him. The way you have to do it is have everyone want to fight each other. Yes. And we'll get into why that was so successful in a little bit, but this was just the onset of it on Raw. By the way, I did Google goose chills. It is far less common than goosebumps or goose pimples, but people absolutely do say it. But I'll just reiterate, I did not say it. I said douche chills because he's a douche. Jey backstage ran into Paul Heyman, who clarified to Jey that he didn't betray anyone because that requires wronging them and stabbing someone in the back. He told Jey that the Braun Breaker match is non-title, which is unlike him to negotiate, but he booked it that way because Braun's only goal is to slow his momentum, and no matter who leaves as champion the next few weeks, Seth Rollins will eventually take the title. Heyman's great, but 25 minutes into Raw, all we had was people saying fact over and over again, so that was really kind of annoying. Like, I understand why Logan did it, and I guess why Jey did it. I think Gunther may have as well. I don't believe he did, if memory serves. But like, Paul's better than that. I would have just preferred him do his own thing and speak extemporaneously the way he can. But I did think that this was better than the opening segment. It actually set the stage for the rest of the night's storytelling. And anytime you can get Heyman and Jey together, hearkening back to the bloodline, that of course makes a lot of sense. Lastly, I saw some people saying like, it doesn't make any sense why Braun Breaker wouldn't want to go after the title right away. Yes, it does, because he's in a group led by a mastermind, 2 masterminds, who have told him, this is your role for now, and this is your future if you follow our lead. And his role right now is not to be World Heavyweight Champion. This has been part of wrestling heel factions for decades. I mean, whether it's NWO or Evolution, think about Batista helping, Triple H for so long, and then Randy Orton helping Triple H for so long. They waited their turn. And then when they got tired of waiting their turn, they turned on their main guy and became champions. This is very similar to that. So I don't understand why people couldn't figure this out.
Yeah, no, that part is weird. To point you said before, like all of this has made the World Heavyweight Championship feel like a big deal. Everybody wants it. At least all the biggest names on Raw right now want the title or a shot at the title. That's how it should be. That's how a world championship should feel, where it's not just one person who's interested in it. It should be everybody in kind of different ways. So it's good to know that Gunther and Seth and Logan are all wanting it, while people like Sami Zayn are not necessarily contending for it, but they're involved in the World Heavyweight Championship picture. It's been a problem for that belt for a while, where it wasn't the number one thing on the show. When Damian Priest was champ, that was a problem. Even recently when Punk and Cody and them were showing up on Raw, and Cena was, the World Heavyweight Championship was not getting attention. And now that Cena's on a limited schedule, Cody's not around.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's on SmackDown, but he's not around. They've done a good job on Raw of making the World Heavyweight Championship feel like a big thing. And that was much needed for that belt.
Yeah, they did. And I was actually going to mention that in a little bit, because I felt the next segments that followed actually did an even better job of that than just Jey and Heyman here, right? Because they got some work done to say, hey, Rollins is interested in it, and we know the other two. But it was seeing everyone interact with one another, to me, that really made it feel alive and kicking. So Rollins later backstage confronted Paul, who was selling the effects of the super kick by speaking almost like he had a bruised lip. Seth told Logan that he would make sure Jey is not 100% for Saturday, and he'd be waiting on the other side if Logan emerges as champion, and he would need to thank Rollins for doing that. I thought that was fine. I was terribly distracted by Rollins' necklace, which featured his logo clipped on top of a chain that, like a belt buckle. It was like he was wearing a belt buckle around his neck. I thought it was so odd looking compared to what you would expect a necklace to look like. Did that bother you at all? Do you know what I'm talking about? Or is this just me?
I honestly don't remember.
Please,
but I believe you.
I'm gonna keep speaking here, but please Google it, and I want your take on this necklace, because we talk about fashion. You love to do that. I need your take on this. So Sammy dapped up Jey backstage, promising to have his back if the numbers game gets out of his control. Rollins then confronted Gunther, praising him as a pretty good champion with his title. Gunther retorted that he's the long-term plan, not Seth. Rollins said Gunther would just be a target, to which he said he's awaiting that happening. The heel segment here was better than the face segment, and it does come across to me, Chris, like WWE is intentionally teasing us with Sammy turning heel, either on purpose, because it's going to happen, or as a swerve for someone else actually doing it. But what's most notable is what you said a moment ago. We have been critical of these events being stacked atop one another. But what WWE is actually doing a great job achieving right now is extending the main event division with 3 contenders all going after Jey simultaneously. It makes Jey feel like a wanted man. As he wins some of these matches, he gets to puff out his chest and be strong as champion. And it is by far the most important that the World Heavyweight Championship has felt and been booked since Rollins held the title. When you consider all the other stories, you said John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, all those stories that partially or completely dominated the Raw main event, this is now the top story on Raw. And shocking to many, it's with Jey as the World Heavyweight Champion, with Gunther, Seth Rollins, and certainly Logan Paul as well, all chasing him.
Yes, I found the necklace. The weirdest part is how tight the necklace is.
Right.
Like and the logo is not at the bottom of the chain.
It's like a belt buckle.
it's like the middle of the chain, and it's way too high. It looks very weird.
Thank you.
Too small. But yes, I mean, again, yes, it's World Heavyweight Championship feels like a big deal, and it has to, because John Cena's not going to be around very much with this belt. So that's clearly a point of emphasis. It's good for the belt. It's very good for Raw. Well done.
Not to like try to correct you or anything, but Cena's a SmackDown guy, but it's the same thing with Roman Reigns.
No, but I mean, there's not much going on in the world title pictures in general. And if one of the world titles is not going to be on TV every week, you have to make the other one an even bigger
the
deal.
focus of the other show. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. But it also, what I was going to say is, it also, what your comment was, plays, just replace John Cena with Roman Reigns, right?
Right. This is why the World Heavyweight Championship was created.
Right.
Because Roman Reigns was not on TV very much with his unified, then undisputed championship. You had to have another belt out there. And they do, and they're doing a good job.
And this is a paradigm of the way that you use it and make it feel important. So just great booking for all of this on Raw. So we had Jey against Breakker in a non-title match. This main evented. Braun took Jey's head off with a rope run clothesline, stomped him out, yelled that he's a bum, and did the leaping clothesline over the announce table. Jey finally turned the tables with a pop-up Samoan drop for a great 2.9 kick out by Braun. He came back with the Breakensteiner before Jey prevented a rope run spear with a super kick for another 2.9. Again, great kick out by Braun. Heyman jumped on the apron, allowing Breakker to grab a steel chair. Jey super kicked him immediately before he could use it. Paul then grabbed Jey's leg to prevent a tope suicida and suckered Jey ringside until Seth attacked him out of the crowd. By the way, Seth was wearing, I don't want to say a Canadian tuxedo because he didn't have like the vest and shirt portion, but it was the same like washed jean look. And he was wearing these like low-rise jeans without a belt. So he was real confident that they were going to stay up doing all that action with loafers on too. It was a fine look. He looked good, but I was thinking to myself, like, if I was a wrestler, I would have a belt because those would fall off me potentially if I was doing something like that. Anyway, Jey is getting attacked by Seth. Sammy saves out of the crowd. Fans loudly chant for CM Punk, who delivered. And normally I wouldn't play an entrance on this show, but let's go ahead and hear what Greenville, South Carolina did on Monday night. I mean, that was straight up wild. Fans literally screaming his song after the music ended. They all fought into the crowd, disappeared with Jey getting his arm raised, only for Logan to knock him out again and Mead and Monk for the camera as Raw went off the air. Somehow his gums were bleeding despite him not being hit by anyone. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there. But the crowd was hot for this match. The finish should have been expected, given Jey was absolutely not losing, and beating Braun there would have been nonsensical. Not to mention it perfectly built as a go-home for two matches simultaneously. What impressed me most during this bout, as mentioned, was Breakker's near fall ability. Jey worked from under for a while, but when it was Braun's turn, he sold his ass off for the champion. The pop-up Samoan drop and then Heyman squaring up to Jey outside the ring. Those were my highlights. These last couple of weeks, they've done more to legitimize Jey than the entire build to WrestleMania accomplished. He's better off for it. The title picture is better off for it. And frankly, it helped build anticipation for a Saturday night's main event I largely did not care that much about going into the week. A successful match and a mainline story on Raw, which you and I always appreciate.
Really good match. Jey should have won here, I feel like. Because everything a lot of what he's doing now are DQs or non-finishes. Like, you didn't want him to beat Seth straight up because of something okay. But he should beat Braun Breakker and get that kind of momentum going into his championship match with Logan Paul, which we probably think he's going to win that. So I just, we very much praised it a week ago of like, they're making Jey. This is great. He can beat Braun. Braun can take a loss to him. Braun is the muscle to Seth right now.
Right.
Like Braun will get there. That was my only thing. But overall, good match, good segment. A couple weeks ago, I made a comment that when the music hit for CM Punk coming in, I couldn't hear it and couldn't tell who it was. Mm-hmm. The same thing happened here.
Really?
First with Sammy, where his music hits, and I couldn't tell whose music it was because the crowd was so loud. And this time I was listening on my computer in my hotel room here in New York. Mm-hmm. And then the Punk one I knew mostly because they were chanting CM Punk, and then I hear music and they cheer. So okay, that's CM Punk. So it worked better here because the crowd was so crazy into it. But yeah, that was an amazing pop. Again, the Greenville crowd was awesome. And that's everything you want your top guys to be. My only other wish, I guess, was that Punk was on the show in some other form otherwise. If Punk's in the building, would love to have him on the show,
I know. It's like 2 weeks in a row, right? Like they're not utilizing the star power, it feels like.
Yeah, so, that might be nitpicky there because it was generally a good show, but overall good stuff.
Yeah, it was absolutely extremely solid. Now, look, well, that's left because we are in the ultimate preview after all is predicting these two matches. I think we can pretty much agree Jey is going to beat Logan, and hopefully it's squeaky clean where he, sells a bit, but in the finish kind of leaves no doubt that he's the better guy and the full-on champion. Do you agree with that? I would assume so.
Yes, my question is Logan's friend Jeff going to show up?
Yes, he will.
With brass, he's going to give him the brass knuckles. Yeah. We're going to do the brass knuckles bit for like the 10th time.
Jey's like, you know what I want? You know what I want to happen, man? I want Jey to like super kick them out of his hand, take them, and then use them. Give this guy some edge.
Yeah.
Let him punch him in the face with some brass knucks. You can call that protecting Logan a little bit if you want. I don't care, really. I want to see this guy like show some gumption and go out there and take it down to a heel. Like fall to his level, stoop to his level, beat him, and then continue. Because look, back in the day, John Cena would get involved. He wouldn't shy away from if someone introduces a chair using a chair. Stone Cold Steve Austin certainly didn't. The Rock and Mick Foley certainly didn't. Give this guy some edge. Why not?
I agree on that. My other question, I generally don't care about this specifically as much, but do you think this is going to be a good match?
Well, coming out of the Gunther WrestleMania match and how disappointing that was, given not just the expectations for a World Heavyweight Championship match at WrestleMania, but what we had seen Jey and Gunther do previously on Raw, we knew they could have a great match, right? I was disappointed after that. And I thought, man, this Jey reign in ring, it's going to be everything that all of the critics are saying. And then he went and had that incredible match with Seth Rollins on Raw. Now, granted, that's Seth Rollins, right? And that style probably works better for Jey than even working with Gunther does. Logan is not either of those guys. I cannot imagine, like for match grade, because we will give a match grade for everything on Saturday night's main event, I would be stunned if I'm over 3.5 stars. So I would expect it to be a C+ level match that Jey wins. If I was WWE, I'd probably have this open the show, get it out of the way. I think every other match on the card is more interesting, even if every other match on the card will not necessarily be better.
I think this gets schmazzy. Whether it's Jeff, whether it's Gunther, perhaps Rollins, Braun, Punk, Zayn group. I know they have a separate match on the show.
Yeah, for that reason, I don't think they're going to get involved at all.
Yeah, but do we think this is main eventing the show?
It could, because the goal is ratings, right? So the goal is to have as many people watch the entirety of the show as possible. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, then your top babyface and the, biggest draw outside of WWE being in the main event, that is what fits. It's not going to be the steel cage match. We'll talk about that. It could be the tag team match.
Right.
I don't think it would be John Cena and R-Truth.
Oh, yeah, no.
We're giving that away, obviously, the rest of our main event segment.
You don't. Yeah,
but I don't think that would main event because that's such a weak match, and it's not even for the title. It's not for the title.
I bring that up just because to see if this match is after the tag team match, then I could see them getting involved.
I would go
if this is the opening match on the card, which is also possible. I would say no. I
would go. This opens Steel Cage 2, Cena 3 tag team match main event. If I was booking it.
I think Cena main events. We'll get to that later.
I actually, in reality, I'm not saying that's what I would do, right?
Yeah.
But what I think happens is that this main events, like because of what I just said about Jey being the top babyface and Logan being a draw from outside of WWE.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's the first match. The second match here is, of course, the tag team bout that we just discussed. It's going to be Sammy and Punk against Rollins and Breakker. And, we thought Jey, beating Logan was an easy prediction. I think this one's easy too. You got to have Rollins and Breakker win. Like, Zayn can take the fall. He's lost plenty recently. You cannot put your brand new group developed on the Raw after WrestleMania 1 month ago in a situation where it loses its opening match together. Sammy is a huge question mark here, given all the teases WWE has done since that Raw after WrestleMania. You'll remember the way he stared at Jey when he was on the top rope, some of the stuff they did this week on the show. He could theoretically turn at any time, perhaps even after Jey comes out to save them, or again, it may be a swerve and someone else is turning heel. I still maintain that Austin Theory would be the best possible option for this group, which, by the way, still needs a name. But a lot of intrigue has been built around this match and what could transpire. It's also possible nothing at all happens. And that is what, Chris, we've come to expect from these Saturday night's main events when WWE brought them back. You'll remember in our Ultimate previews, we would say, oh, well, it would make sense. It's the first Saturday night's main event. They do this title change or this big thing happens. And instead it was as boilerplate, as WWE live event house show as it possibly could be. And that could happen here where the baby faces win across the entire show, with the exception probably of John Cena. And that's just what we get because it's there to please the crowd on a Saturday night. I hope that's not the case. I hope they book to what's actually best for business. I hate to use that term, but in reality. And what's best is Rollins and Breakker winning.
Yes, Rollins and Breakker should win. They are my pick. This might be the opportunity, like you said, to add a third person. I don't know if Austin Theory makes sense yet, considering Theory's still kind of dealing with Waller stuff. But this would be an interesting place to do it. And that way you keep Punk and Zayn over here kind of doing this while Jey continues to have a world title reign, where then he would then go focus on Gunther for a bit again. And we're probably not getting Jey Seth or whatever combination of that is until SummerSlam. So we've got a couple of months still. So keep all of them preoccupied. You do that by having the heels win here.
Well, just to kind of throw a wrench into what I predicted and what you predicted, the other thing that you can do here, because again, we mentioned this last week, the baby faces already have three, right? Jey, CM Punk, and Sami Zayn. What you could have is the faces win here because like Paul tries to get involved, Jey runs out, the faces get the win. And that creates the need to introduce the third heel that we've been discussing. And then at Money in the Bank, those six guys wrestle in a six-man match, knowing everything that's coming out of it.
No, because Jay's going to have a title match against Gunther.
Not at Money in the Bank. His match is on the Raw after Money in the Bank.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought they said it's at Money in the Bank. I thought you said it's at Money in the Bank in Phoenix.
I believe it's the Raw after. I could certainly be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
There's so many shows, like we keep losing track of when all of these matches are happening. With a pay-per-view almost every other week, why the heck would you save something for a Raw in the first place? Because you got another big show coming up in 2 weeks anyway, so...
Yeah, I just Googled it and confirmed. I knew I was right because we talked about this on the episode, I want to say last week. So Money in the Bank is June 7th, Inglewood, California, Intuit Dome, home of the Los Angeles Clippers, where they aired Raw after WrestleMania. This title match, the second title match, Jey and Gunther, that's going to be taking place in Phoenix 2 days later on Monday Night Raw. And the reason why that was so notable that we discussed it previously on the show is because it seems to telegraph the fact that there will be a Money in the Bank cash-in either on that date or it'll be teased on that date. And that'll give an excuse to Jey beating Gunther and retaining the title, either because he pins who tries to cash it in or because that person interferes and Jey rolls up Gunther or whatever the case might be. So that makes sense in that regard. Why they would do it 2 days later, because they're planning on something like that. But it also fits with them doing a 6-man match at Money in the Bank itself. However, now that I'm saying it, and Gunther is having this title match with Jey, theoretically, you would not have to introduce a new member of Rollins' crew because Gunther could be their third man. So it could be Rollins, Breakker, and Gunther against Jey, Punk, and Sammy at Money in the Bank in a 6-man match. It gets Jey on the show, defending the title. You'll remember last week we criticized the fact that there'd be 2 PLEs after WrestleMania and Jey wouldn't defend the title on either of them. Well, it gets the champion on the show, even if the title isn't on the show. And it then previews the match that's happening 48 hours later.
That's right. Man, this is confusing.
I know. This is what we talked about, man. There's too much happening at the same time. WWE made the most out of it on Monday night, though, by truly developing the World Heavyweight Championship main event picture. And that was necessary, so that's a positive coming out of all of this. But those are the first 2 matches on this Ultimate Preview. We still have 2 more to discuss. Let's first talk Damian Priest against Drew McIntyre. Yes, it is happening again, and this time it's happening inside a steel cage. Priest got a promo package saying he and McIntyre are clearly caught in a cycle of sabotage and destruction. He said McIntyre's shit is petty, vindictive, and childish, and they need a conclusion, so he challenged him to the stipulation, saying the cycle ends here. McIntyre got his response promo live, saying he's been stuck in this shit for a year, and being in the same breath as Drew is the only reason Damian is even relevant. McIntyre said Priest is jealous that he's better than him in every way, and Priest continues to cost him titles and even the Grand Slam champion moniker. Drew snapped about his head getting slammed into the concrete last week and made a guarantee: only one man will walk out, the other will leave on a stretcher. Chris, I'm of 2 minds here. First is that both guys delivered on the mic, credit to them. Priest to the best of his ability. McIntyre obviously far better and with a lot more passion. You could feel the hatred in his eyes, his face, the words coming out of his mouth while he was in the ring. But dude, I really do not want this match to happen out of pure pessimism that Priest is going to get his win back. There was no reason for this feud to continue after WrestleMania when McIntyre beat the ever-loving shit out of this guy in a definitive victory, a stipulation match, by the way. Meanwhile, Priest missed 1 week at most? I forget. My other issue is that, sure, this is not Hell in a Cell like last year with Punk, but it's a steel cage, and McIntyre really cannot lose 2 of these matches, especially when the second one would be to Priest of all people. If he lost to Punk and then Rollins, sure, but Priest, come on. The way he said this, only one of us will walk out, it makes me believe Priest gets the win, but McIntyre beats him so badly that Damian gets stretchered while Drew is able to walk. I would hate it, but it feels like that's what they're telling us is going to happen with that line.
Drew is in this really tough spot where he is absolutely a main eventer, and there is just no room in the main event for him right now. And what do you do with him? I don't know. The Priest thing, we didn't like it when it started. Credit both of them. They turned it into something interesting going into Mania. But I didn't want to see it anymore. Nothing since then has been very captivating. And you're just, it's like they said, they're stuck in a cycle, stuck in a vortex. And I don't know what you do. Cage match, okay, but we already did a stipulation match. McIntyre had the bloody Hell in a Cell that was an unbelievable match. Nothing's going to top that. He's got to win one of these, but is it just dragged out for Priest to take another loss? And if Priest never gets his win back over McIntyre, it's going to be hard for him to kind of climb back up. My pick here is going to be Drew, but I think this is kind of a symptom of a larger situation. He's on SmackDown. John Cena's got the belt, doing his own thing. McIntyre, Cena doesn't make sense. They're both heels. They don't fit. Punk is no longer on the show. Sami Zayn is not on the show. Jey Uso's the champion. He's on the other show. Is the U.S. title big enough for Drew McIntyre? It feels like he's well above that level.
Well, it is because he has said it's what he needs to be a Grand Slam champion. So he has a reason to want it. And they're also building up Jacob Fatu as a beast. And don't forget, they've been teasing Fatu and Drew as like this big time feud that Priest and others have prevented from happening on its own. Priest and LA Knight. So even if it's not, like we know it's not, he should be a world champion. The way it's being booked is actually pretty solid to make it feel important.
Yeah, and it just that has felt like the ultimate place to go. And that would feel like a big match. You do that at a SummerSlam. I mean, that elevates the title, if we're being honest.
That would make sense as the SummerSlam match.
Yes, McIntyre Fatu at SummerSlam for US title elevates the match. It fits. And if we're presuming to get there, Drew's got to win this match. If this is the last one, as they said.
But let me ask you a question, right? Are you doing what I have done so many times previously in Ultimate Previews, and you're predicting what you want to happen as opposed to what you think will happen?
I mean, in terms of want, I don't have strong feelings on want in this one.
Okay.
You know, like I'm not like Drew's
really
gotta win because I think he should win, but I'm not like clamoring for Drew McIntyre to. I don't even know where he would go is my problem. I'm not like
you just said it, Fatu. You just said it where he would go.
No, I think that's a good spot, but I'm not like he's got to do this. I like LA Knight is the guy who I'm like he's got to win. He's got to like. I'm behind that. I'm just not really there with McIntyre. He is what he is. He's a top level guy. He's okay, I guess.
No, that's fair. I was just kind of curious because I think McIntyre. I mean, I don't believe this match should be happening at all. That's really the key. And because it is happening, I believe McIntyre absolutely needs to win. However, I'm going counter to what I believe should happen. And what I believe will happen is Priest winning this match, but getting stretchered out. And McIntyre loses because he gets caught, but is the one that stands tall and gets to say, yeah, you beat me. That was happenstance. I kicked your ass again, just like I did the time before. And now I'm done with you. And they just move on from it.
Few things in wrestling make me more than someone winning a match and getting beaten up and stretched out afterward. What's even the point?
Well, I wouldn't say it's beaten up afterwards. So he would be beating him so bad that for some miraculous, I hate the term because it's used in the other company all the time to excuse not selling and miraculous things happening. But in some type of like fighting spirit way, like Priest gets claymored, but I don't even know. But McIntyre falls onto stairs when he delivers it. And therefore Priest is able to crawl over his body, put a hand on his chest, get the 1, 2, 3. But McIntyre is able to stand and leave, whereas Priest has to get stretchered out because he got beaten so badly. Like, that would be the way you do something.
They did that with Triple H Undertaker at WrestleMania 27.
That sounds correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking happens here. And I hate it, but what it does accomplish, to be fair, it would allow Priest to be the next challenger for Jacob immediately, and it would allow McIntyre to get pushed off a couple extra months to have that match, either in July or at SummerSlam in August.
Maybe, because Jacob has to kind of get his...
He has to get wins. Yeah.
Has to get wins and maybe has to get his solo thing taken care of too.
Absolutely. And if the first couple of months are him, not against Solo, where they're still technically together, then you need people he can beat with that assistance. And Priest getting beaten because Solo and or JC Mateo, more on that later, because one of them helps, it protects Priest and simultaneously allows Fatu to retain the title and Priest to have gotten his chance at the U.S. title, but then move on from it.
No protections of nothing. If Fatu wrestles Priest, Fatu's got to win clean straight up.
I know, but we're talking about what they're going to do, not what we want to happen, right? Okay. And what do we see all the time? In the Bloodline especially, they get protected. And the opponents, the babyface opponents get protected. And it seems like that would happen. But again, we're projecting pretty far out, so let's kind of circle back. One other note I wanted to say on the steel cage match, Chris. The entire gimmick behind Saturday night's main event is what? Old school. Fingers crossed. They somehow figure out a way to use the blue steel cage here. I don't think it's going to happen. If I had to guess, they'll use the silver one. But man, if they brought the blue back out, that would be incredible.
what makes Saturday night's main event so cool is the charm of it all.
The nostalgia, yeah.
The nostalgia, the skinny entrance ramp, the old graphics, the bow ties. Like, it's all really good. You can't do the modern cage in that aesthetic.
Right.
It really should be blue cage. That said, if blue cage comes back, I don't want it necessarily for Drew McIntyre or Damian Priest.
I know.
That feels like a CM Punk Cody type of thing.
But to be fair though, they've had we talked about this. Like, their build to WrestleMania should not have been great. It was great. The match was great. It exceeded and met every expectation that we had for a feud that no one actually wanted.
No, I just mean for like old school type of guy.
I'm just saying they're going to deliver inside of it. If they get the blue bars, even if they don't, this match is going to be great. It may be the match of the night.
I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be the match of the night. Yeah, straight up. So let's move to the final match, not necessarily the main event on this Saturday night's main event. John Cena against R-Truth in a non-title match. R-Truth was interviewed by Wade Barrett on SmackDown. Truth said you could always depend on Cena when times got tough. He spouted all his phrases, basically saying he believed in him. Barrett tried to get Truth's mind right, but Truth said Cena retained the title himself at Backlash, and he's not sure about the guy he's become recently. But he'll beat him back to his senses if necessary. He said Cena is his hero and the greatest of all time, but he got this match made to prove what Cena always said is true. Now, this got a bit convoluted the way it was all delivered, but the overall concept of Truth wanting to get the hero he remembers back from the brink, it makes perfect sense. It probably would have worked a little bit better as a pre-taped promo package, if we're being honest, as opposed to a sit-down interview. But Truth also helped give weight to Cena selling his soul, arguably more than Cena himself has in the last 3 months since it happened. Yep. Holding this match was not completely necessary for Cena's final run, but it works perfectly as a way to advance his heel turn and finally tie up this long-term story of Cena being Truth's childhood hero. Plus, I'm just happy they're doing the match, particularly on this show. They're not doing it on a PLE. It's not for a title, which it should not be because Truth hasn't won shit in the last 5 years outside of the 24/7 championship. What I hope is that Cena gets major heat, utterly destroying Truth, because that should be utilized to build this heel turn even further, because it hasn't been that successful compared to expectation. We got to get the crowd to actually hate this guy. And if he beats the ever-loving crap out of Truth, there's a chance they actually start hating him.
The combined age of these guys is 101. Cena is 48. R-Truth is 53. Neither of them look it, by the way, especially Truth. And so, no, this is not going to be a 5-star classic. It's not supposed to be. I thought Truth did a good job here of not being over the top goofy. You know, where he's just like, he's a little bit delusional at the beginning. He's like, that wasn't Cena.
Right.
You know, he's not ruining wrestling. But as it kind of went on, he kind of started to like motivate himself. He's like, I don't want to fight John, but I'll beat him back to his senses. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, like all the motivations and explanations are out there. This was a quick turnaround because I think this was the first SmackDown post Backlash, right?
I believe that is correct.
So, like, if you didn't watch that press conference, you kind of didn't exactly know what the whole thing was about. Last time we saw Truth, he saved John Cena, and suddenly they're telling us they have a match.
So,
and you're like, what?
While that's true, they did air it on the show because
they did.
What WWE's not going to do is forget to air a recap package on TV.
No, and that's something you have to do because a lot of people didn't watch the press conference, which is, again, if they had just done this at the end of the show on the air, it would have immediately fed into what we knew was coming. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Cena has to beat the ever-loving crap out of Truth. The same way that Damian Priest needed to when Truth was in Judgment Day, and they didn't fully pull the trigger. They pulled the trigger like multiple times, but never went far enough. And that needs to happen here. The problem is, but this is on NBC. This is not on Peacock. This is not on USA.
Correct.
It is on Peacock, but it's not like exclusive.
It's, yeah, Peacock. Right.
it would be a great spot to leave Truth in a bloody mess.
I know, but they're not going to.
Same way they did to Cody, but that was just on Peacock. And I don't see that happening on network television.
Well, don't forget the Cody moment with Kevin Owens in the pile driver. It happened once this show went off the air.
That too.
So it could possibly happen where like they cut it off and he's kicking the crap out of him, and then they show on social media Truth getting bludgeoned in a real way.
If that's the way they have to go to make it happen, that works.
Yeah.
I'm
as long as it's not entirely off air. The beatdown, I mean.
Yeah, no, correct. Just they go off the air during the beatdown and then he bloodies them after the fact. That would be a good way to do it. You gotta go all the way here to make us hate John Cena as a person, as not just a guy who says things to the crowd.
Right.
It feels like it still feels like we're booing a character because it feels like he's playing a character. We need to boo John Cena as John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason you schedule this match is to do that. So go all the way. That's what they got to do.
Should be the case. And I completely agree with you there. I did want to mention just before we get out of this that there are no women's matches here. And we thought that the reason why WWE was scheduling the WWE Evolution 2 show, which is expected to be in July, was because of, Blood Money in the Sand, right? Because that's what they did the last time. It now seems like they're doing that either because of this or this show does not have any women's matches because Evolution is happening. But it is notable because WWE has been great about featuring the women just in general, not necessarily equal, although it should be equal, but, much more equal than it had been in the past. To not have any matches on this show does stand out. So I just wanted to kind of
but
mention
we only have 4 matches. One of them is the Cena gimmick thing. I do think, obviously, the first one was because of Saudi Arabia. I honestly think this one is mostly because the women's division is freaking stacked.
Yeah, it is.
And it would be a great opportunity to highlight a lot of people who are just not finding enough time elsewhere.
Yeah, they just need to kind of get those storylines going. But to be fair, we did see plenty of that across Raw and SmackDown this week. Chris, because this is an ultimate preview, before we get out of here, let's give some pre-show expectation grades for this edition of WWE Saturday Night's Main Event. As always, when we do grades, you get the opportunity to go first. So what is your pre-show grade for this edition of Saturday Night's Main Event?
Gonna go B+, which I think is where I was with Backlash.
I think you were at an 88 B+ for Backlash.
Because I think, obviously, I want more matches, but this is a 2-hour special. It's not a pay-per-view where you can go longer.
Mm-hmm.
And this just has more depth. All 4 matches are big-time matches, even the Cena thing. So I can't get into the A range just because it's so short.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely.
And it's a TV show. But I'm going to be right there at an 88. Again, solid B+ with the opportunity to get higher.
Interesting. I thought the Backlash card was better than this. And I'm going to go with a similar grade to what I had then. And we're going to see if this is 2 shows in a row where we flip our grades by the time we give our post show. But I'm at a flat B at an 85. Fact of the matter is the steel cage match I am actively anticipating, just because even though I don't want it to happen, I think it's going to be the match of the night and a great match between these 2 guys that continuously, when they go against each other bell to bell, they put on straight up
banger
after
banger
after
banger.
So I'm anticipating that. The tag team match is going to blow the roof off the place just because you have 2 big-time baby faces and a great heel in Seth Rollins, and Braun Breaker, of course, is immensely popular. Logan Paul and Jey, I just have a feeling it's going to be, really rough and crappy. And while Cena and Truth, the story is there, we've seen Cena lumbering around the ring. Truth can go, but he can only go in short bursts. He's really good in tag team situations. In a singles match, man, I don't know if this is going more than 5 minutes. I don't think it's going to be much of anything. You did mention that there's only 4 matches on this card, but it's a 2-hour TV special, which is really funny because there's only 5 matches on premium live events these days. So, you're pretty much getting a premium live event, just 1 fewer match and 1 fewer hour. And then you think, what's happening the rest of that hour, considering on Peacock and on NBC, there's tons of commercials. Well, it's commercials and video packages and recaps and all that type of stuff. So it's really not that different from a premium live event, which is actually kind of strange. But regardless, that is where we stand. And as mentioned earlier, all of you can give your pre and post show grades by following us on Twitter at GettingOvercast. We will post polls before and after the show. You can let your voice be heard. Obviously, send us questions and comments during Saturday night's main event. We will do our best to discuss them on our Instant Analysis podcast coming out Saturday night right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. You can listen wherever you find performance-enhancing audio. So, Chris, we still have plenty to talk about from WWE this week, and we're going to hit it, as we always do, by moving into the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy.
Say hello to the back.
Don't sing it. Bring it.
A little behind the scenes, by the way, on creating that transition. I got an opportunity to watch probably 40 old Razor Ramon Scott Hall promos to find the right sound drops to utilize. And I had some help, and we mentioned that previously. Luis, one of our longtime listeners who's helping us with some of our video stuff, he came up with the idea, and I just added some tweaks to it. But when you watch 40 consecutive Razor Ramon Scott Hall promos, you truly do remember how amazing he is, both in terms of just speaking on the mic and coming up with individual lines. There was a Razor Ramon promo from, I think, when he was getting introduced to WWF back in the day, where he like saw someone, and I forgot exactly what happened. They touched him like while he was out, and he's like, "You lost your mind, Chico." And that was like the original part of that sound drop. Maybe I'll come up and I'll play some of the draft versions that we had previously. I just figured I would tell you all that behind the scenes stuff.
Related, I was at a wedding this weekend and realized that when I drink a lot, I start kind of walking like Razor Ramon.
Do you have a toothpick that you like to flick at people as well?
No, but I've got the hands out and I'm just kind of doing that kind of thing.
That's hysterical. There was definitely a period of time, high school for sure, where I'm not saying I kept a toothpick in my ear. I definitely did not do that. But like when you go out to dinner with your friends and they have the toothpicks kind of there at the end, I would take a couple, and then during the remainder of the night at parties and stuff, I would flick toothpicks at people like Razor.
My dad's a big toothpick guy. Didn't flick it, but big toothpick guy.
I mean, if you have a toothpick and you're not flicking it, what are you doing? Like,
good point.
As far as I'm concerned. All right, tons to talk about here from Raw and SmackDown. Let's get to it. The WWE Women's Championship. Tiffany Stratton defending against Nia Jax. Naomi stalked Nia backstage as she warmed up. Then she stalked Tiffy and Jade Cargill as they argued over Jade saying that she would win Money in the Bank and successfully cash in. One of Cargill's better speaking segments, to her credit. This match appropriately main evented SmackDown. Jax murked Stratton with a hip attack into the ring post as her head was draping over the ropes, which was really cool. Tiffy answered by leaping off the barricade, sending Nia into the ring post. Jax answered with a pop-up Samoan drop and senton. Stratton hit a handspring back elbow and spinebuster. Nia then snuffed out a cartwheel, hitting a powerbomb, pickup, Liger bomb, and leg drop. Tiffy caught her on the ropes for a reverse slam to the canvas, almost like an avalanche emerald flosion, before Naomi walked down with a steel chair and her new red hair, by the way. Jade immediately followed to eliminate Naomi. They brawled into the crowd. Stratton avoided a charging Jax, who nailed the ring post and 8 prettiest moonsault ever for a false finish. Great sell by Joe Tessitore in particular, pointing out immediately that Nia was the first person to ever kick out of that move. Jax hit a Samoan drop into the announce table, but when Stratton tried to break Annihilator with a powerbomb, she slipped, with Jax falling straight onto her chest for a 1-2 sudden rope break at the end. Frustrated, Nia tried to leave with the title before bringing a chair into the ring. Tiffy immediately drop-kicked into her face, which bloodied her right away. Huge gash on her forehead, and hit prettiest moonsault ever again to retain the championship. An absolutely gnarly bump with the seated Annihilator, and another with that chair shot. God damn. Sabu was up in heaven saying, "Damn, ladies, that's something only I would do." Tessa and Wade, they were great all show, but they nailed the call of this match just like they did the TLC match a couple weeks ago. Stratton was put over in the match itself. Commentary sent her to the moon, selling the devastation of Nia's moves and what Tiffy was able to overcome. I'd have preferred all of this to happen without Naomi and Jade in the steel chair, but since it was not Stratton who introduced any of that, she still got the win over Jax that she needed, after winning the championship. And it wasn't clean, but for Stratton, it was clean. She didn't do anything wrong. This was a tremendous in-ring night of TV for WWE on Friday. These ladies were right up there with the other best matches. I actually gave this one the edge overall as the match of the week. 4.25 stars. Match of the night, match of the week. They worked their asses off and the easiest possible good.
This was fantastic. Might have been the second best women's match of the year behind the triple threat at Mania to this point. I love
for
this.
WWE, maybe. Yeah.
Within WWE, yes. There was so much good stuff. And we've said it before. We didn't have a most improved award last year, I don't think, in the meaties, but Nia Jax, we said, was deserving of winning it. She's done a great job. Tiffy did a great job here. Like you said, massive hats off to Joe Tessitore for pointing out that nobody had ever kicked out of the moonsault, the prettiest moonsault before. I did not know that until they said it. So that's good context to have. Now, I probably would have saved that moment for a bigger match that Tiffy loses.
On a premium live event or something, right?
Yeah. But still, good to know. Samoan drop on the announce table. Table did not break. You know, we went a period with the new tables where none of them were breaking. Then they broke a bunch of them at Mania.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't know if this was supposed to break or not, but we might be back to reinforced tables potentially. And I loved a note by Wade Barrett at this point where he said the referee was very forgiving on the 10 count outside the ring at this point because it's a championship match. He was being more lenient. He didn't want the match out like that. Very good call out there by Wade Barrett in that moment. On the Annihilator powerbomb shifting type of thing, Tiffy grabbing the rope at the last second. Like it was like a 2.99 grab the rope moment.
It was awesome.
I legit thought for a split second she was losing and got me. Those are the moments that are great. And then, the drop kick into the chair into the face was gnarly. She was really bloodied
immediately. Yeah.
Before Tiffy even got there for the pin. So hope she's okay. I know she posted some pictures about it, but major props to both of them, man. That was unbelievable.
The rope break was so sick for me because when I was seeing her in that position, I was like, her arm is trapped under Nia's thigh. She's not even if she wants to rope break, she may not get there. Like, they may botch this, but they did it perfectly and she was able to grab it. To your point about the tables, when they reestablished them as stronger than ever before and unbreakable, and then they broke those couple of times, it made it even more impactful. Since then, they've imploded like 2 or 3 more times, and they don't feel special anymore. So they really need to go back to like, hey, we reinforce the tables, and they're not going to break that way. When you get a JC Mateo or a Bronson Reed or Jacob Fatu does a frog splash off the ropes through the table, then it's way more impactful because it's like, oh my God, Tess, that table hasn't broken in 6 months, something like that. So I just wish they'd kind of go back to that, make them a little bit more special. I'm glad you pointed that out. I'll tell you what, Chris, this match, you put this on WrestleMania instead of what they did with Charlotte Flair, it would have been even better for Tiffy. They never should have thrown this feud away before that show. Nia continues to stand out since returning as a legitimate heel. She generates real heat without resorting to you people promos. It would have been crazy to say this in 2022, but in 2025, she might be one of the most underrated wrestlers on the entire roster.
Yes, she is. I'm glad you made that point about promos too. Like, it's not just a you people don't like me type of stuff that Charlotte is doing. And Charlotte's getting heat, but Nia's like doing it in a really creative way. And I think I said this last week, but the depth of heel women on the roster right now is crazy good.
Yeah.
And Nia's probably at the top of that list, other than maybe Liv Morgan.
Yeah, the depth of women in general, but certainly the heel side, it's stronger than it ever has been in WWE history. I mean, it's remarkable, frankly. Let's move to a bevy of Money in the Bank qualifiers. We're going to handle all the women first, and then we'll do the men second. All of them are triple threat matches, and these, of course, happened across SmackDown and Raw. Real briefly, before we get into them one by one, Chris, I saw some people criticize the fact that they're triple threats. I like it. Number one, it protects women and men who they don't want to take falls, but they also don't want to be in the match, but they also don't want to leave out of getting opportunities, and it gets more people on screen. And I think that's a positive.
Yeah, but it's very tired though. They always do it this way. Like they do triple threats into singles matches for the Intercontinental and the US title, or triple threat. It's the one they always go back to, and just it doesn't feel fresh.
How do you feel about doing triple threats for Money in the Bank qualifiers only, and then every other time the rest of the year it's one-on-ones?
Yeah, whatever you do, just do that specific one lesser time.
Yeah, because it feels like they did this. I don't remember specifically, and if I'm wrong or if we're wrong, apologies. Feels like they probably did it for Elimination Chamber and for the Intercontinental and US title matches, like you were talking about, to crown the inaugural champions.
Yeah,
it feels like it went that way. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those were more tournament based, the latter, but it just feels like they do it a lot. I'm okay with it in a vacuum, in a silo for a single type of qualifier like Money in the Bank. I think it makes the most sense for Money in the Bank. So the first one was Alexa Bliss, Michin, and Chelsea Green. B-Fab gassed up her girl backstage. Green broke it up, discussing her economic agenda. Then Bliss just walked through all of them, with B-Fab informing Secret Harvest that they're all banned from ringside. Alexa did have Lily with her, as we wondered about last week. The faces regularly teamed up to take out Chelsea, who turned it around on them. Michin countered Unpretty Her into Eat Defeat for a broken fall. Bliss took her out with a tornado DDT and Twisted Bliss, with Green breaking the fall and hitting Unpretty Her. But Bliss pulled Michin out of the ring and hit the Abigail DDT to win to a massive pop. This was an extremely well-produced match. Bliss is legitimately and surprisingly doing her best in-ring work since returning to WWE this year. The only note I have is her finisher takes way too long to set up, but it does raise the fans when she connects with it. So that's positive. Bliss was the right winner despite us wanting Green in this match. But there's going to be plenty of opportunities for her to win the title in the future. Definite good.
Good. I agree on the slowness of the finisher. Like, it could be quicker though. Like, Bray Wyatt did a quick, for a period of time.
He had two variations.
Yeah. So Chelsea did a good job of selling it. Chelsea takes the pin. It doesn't hurt her at all. She's Chelsea Green, it's fine. And this was good.
Later backstage, Bliss said her goal was to become the first woman to win Money in the Bank twice. I think Carmella technically did that. I know they threw out the first match.
No, James Ellsworth.
I know, but they threw it out and said, I think Daniel Bryan said it didn't count, and then they did a rematch, and then she won it herself again. But she did kind of win it twice, so let's just be honest. Anyway, Bliss said she would be the first to do it. She came across Charlotte Flair, who was waiting outside Nick Aldis's office, asking Flair if she gave any thought to what they discussed last week. Charlotte shared that Alexa offered basically to be friends, but since they never were that close, and she didn't ever remember having her back in NXT like Bliss claimed, she had no interest in doing that. This was actually some really interesting continuity because Bliss had said previously in a promo, this is when she was teaming with Nikki Cross and feuding with Bayley. She's like, you and Becky and all of them, you were all mean to me in NXT. Charlotte was the only one who ever had my back. So they actually brought that back, which I thought was pretty cool. But as they were kind of having this argument, Julia walked out of Nick Aldis's office as the newest member of SmackDown before Charlotte rubbed it into Alexa, saying she doesn't need her. Putting Flair and Money in the Bank would put me at my wit's end, I swear. I do enjoy what she and Bliss are doing, though. Plus, Alexa's winning matches and cutting promos, finally. It's an interesting women's storyline not involving a title, hearkening back to prior relationships, though it feels like they're forgetting their more recent storyline that I was talking about last week. But getting Julia on SmackDown was also much needed to drastically raise the talent in the division and split up the Joshis. They've been concentrated on one show for far too long. I don't know what's going to happen with Asuka when she returns. Maybe she winds up on SmackDown. I know she likes being with Kairi Sane and Io Sky, so we'll see what happens. But I love Julia on this show. I like what Bliss and Charlotte are doing away from a title, and kind of doing this segment with all of them together was really intriguing booking for SmackDown. It was different than what we've seen for the last month and really the entirety of the year. This was good.
I had forgotten that Bliss and Charlotte were friends. Like, I know that was a thing, but like, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to kind of like go to the Wikipedia pages to try to remember what the history between the two of them was. My take on this is, whether it's in Money in the Bank or after, we'll get a Bliss Charlotte thing.
Evolution.
Away from the title. Yeah, no title, no Money in the Bank, whatever. So that'd be a good place to go. Julia on SmackDown splitting them up makes sense. I got a DM from @2ChaneyZ who said Julia also always reminded him of the ex-Stina Christina Aguilera part. So it was good to know that I was not alone on that. And yeah, this was not much really to this, but setting stuff up is good.
You are not alone. I am here with you. That's just what I thought of when you said that. Flair, Julia, and Zelina Vega was set for a qualifier next week. Beyond that, just wanted to note the SmackDown women's division. It just felt refreshed to a degree, Chris, Friday night, with Alexa integrated, Charlotte getting used again away from the title, Julia being side, much needed, long overdue. And it's one of the reasons why the show just felt so interesting on Friday. Io Sky backstage on Raw said she's ready no matter who wins Money in the Bank because she knows what it takes to win and defend the title. Becky Lynch interrupted, reminding Io's never beaten her one-on-one, and she's ready to put down another champion just like she did Lyra Valkyria. Fun little story beat. Not sure the interaction got the reaction that was expected. Like, I expected a really big pop when they were on screen, and the crowd was great again on Monday night, but they didn't really pop as loud for this as I expected. We had Lynch, Roxanne Perez, and Natalya in a qualifier. Roxy was signed to Raw in a social media segment before the show. Neither she nor Natty got a live entrance, which disappointed given you just signed Roxy and made a deal of it. Perez broke a disarm her with her basement hurricanrana and woke up an absolutely dead crowd at the beginning of this match with a tope suicida into both women. Becky avoided Pop Rocks at Manhandle Slam for a broken fall. There was an inventive setup for a Pop Rocks off the ropes combined with a German suplex for a broken fall. That briefly led to Roxy being chanted. Natty powerbombed Bex off the ropes, first using her as a weapon into Roxanne. Then she locked in a double non-stacked sharpshooter, which always looks way better when they try to stack them. That sucks, but one leg each was great. Lynch eventually escaped, broke it with Perez using manhandle slam, except Valkyria pulled her out of the ring for a brawl. She ran in, pulled her out. When Natalya tried to put Lynch back in the sharpshooter when she ran back into the ring, Perez caught her bent over with Pop Rocks and got the win. This was an excellent match that deserved a far more responsive crowd. Again, the crowd was great for most of Raw, but I said it was hot and cold, and it was surprisingly cold for a large part of this. They were wild for the opening tag team bout, and then this came immediately after it. And I thought it was weird because while Natty is not booked at all, really, and therefore shouldn't expect a response, Bex is Bex, and Roxy was the rooting interest in the match. The fans did not live up to the work here, but the chants for Perez were nice and appropriate. They helped her a lot. Roxy was the right winner. Natalya was not only the workhorse in this match, she was the MVP. Let me be clear about that. The MVP of this match, yet the obvious loser, was Natalya. Beyond that, the Intercontinental title feud was perfectly weaved into it. Good.
Good match. Expected result. Natalya is interesting because we've said it on this podcast before, but she deserves a lot more credit just for her in-ring ability and her kind of place in women's wrestling history. Like, she was still around for the Divas era and the peak of all that. And back then she was known as the one who was a good wrestler back then.
Right. The only one who actually wrestled.
Yeah. And I think in the ensuing years, people started to think she was graded on a curve because of that with all the four horsewomen and all these people who came up from NXT that, Natalya actually was not that good. She was just good because there was nobody else there.
Right.
No, she's a really good wrestler and always has been. In the last couple of years, the few times she's gotten the opportunities to show that, she has shown she still got it. She's been doing some interesting stuff outside of WWE. Mm-hmm. She had a match with NWA recently and then kind of shoved a fan afterward that may or may not have been a work.
It wasn't work.
But there was like an edge to it that we don't see from Natalya. And I'm like, man, some of this Natalya I see outside of WWE, I'd love to see inside of WWE. Maybe there's not any room for it. But just wanted to shout her out on that. And one other thing, Cole said, he noted during this match, the women's Money in the Bank has cashed in successfully 100% of the time, which makes me wonder, will there be a point that it doesn't work? I mean, there should be.
At some point.
Yeah. And I wonder if they start to say that more to highlight that ahead of time that it won't happen.
I'll just point out that they've said that many years in a row. They've pointed out that it's 100%, but the person still wins and cashes in successfully. So I don't think it's directly an indicator. Regarding Natalya, what she's been doing on, let's call it the indie scene, she wrestled a Bloodsport match on WrestleMania weekend. She did the NWA match. The fan was planted. But she's basically doing like a grizzled veteran, badass type of character that we previously saw a little too much of in WWE with like Sonya Deville kind of did it for a while and Shayna Baszler kind of did it. And like to a small degree, Zoe Stark, we'll talk about her, I promise you momentarily, kind of did it, but not in the same way. But because they're gone, Natty actually bringing that character to the main roster would make her interesting. Like she is I don't want to say the final boss that you need to get through because that's not, that would indicate that she's the champion and that you have to beat her to like be on the top of the mountain. But she should be like this badass gateway wrestler where when new talent comes up, they fight her and she gets some wins over them. But then eventually they're able to overcome her and she gives them a nod of approval, like a mid boss in a video game kind of. And that's kind of the character that she's playing on the indies, just a badass. She braids her hair. She wears fight clothes like you would do in a MMA match as opposed to like wrestling gear. And that's the Natty I want to see on screen. And I really hope that we get that at some point because it's actually compelling. And her promos have been great too on the independents. And we just don't really see that. I understand there's a lot of other people taking TV time, but you can fit that character into everything else that you're doing. Have her win some, have her lose some. And if you want, she beats the heels and she loses to the baby faces. That's totally fine.
And which is why it's nice that WWE is periodically letting some of these lesser used people go off and do something. Omos goes off to Japan. You know, like just let, you don't have to be AEW and Forbidden Doors everywhere, but like from time to time do some stuff like that. You might find something that's really interesting that you can use.
She has definitely found something. And you know what's funny? People have been complaining that Roxy has been losing on TV weekly across Raw and NXT. And there is some legitimacy to saying that. But let's also discuss what this woman has now done so far in 2025. As a 23-year-old main roster rookie, she registered the longest time ever spent in a women's Royal Rumble. I believe she was the runner-up in that match.
Yes.
She competed in the Elimination Chamber match, and now she's competing in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Yes, a couple wins in between would have been nice, but she's winning when it counts, and she's being featured way more as a rookie than even Tiffany Stratton was a year ago. So keep that in mind when you're bothered by her losing an occasional match here and there.
It's also way different than like the way Carmelo Hayes has been treated.
Totally.
Roxanne is treated like a big deal. She's all right.
100%. Kairi Sane returned to Raw after 6 months away nursing a hand injury. WWE gave this away hours before the show, posting on social media a video of Kairi just walking into the arena. Now, anyone who listens to this podcast knows what we're about to say. WWE no longer providing audiences with legitimate surprise returns. It has been a consistent creative failure under Paul Levesque. Kairi is not Asuka. And for that reason, it's not like giving this away was going to drive viewership or hurt viewership, but why not reward your live viewers with something unexpected? We have a triple threat match for Money in the Bank. It's Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark and a mystery third opponent. And you're going into the show wondering who's it going to be. Is Asuka coming back? Is Kairi Sane coming back? Is someone getting called up from NXT? Is it someone from SmackDown for some reason? And then Kairi Sane comes out. And she got a pop, by the way. We'll talk about that momentarily. But why not reward your live viewers? You're not going to drive more people to watch the show just by promoting that Kairi's returning 2 hours before Raw. I don't get it. If Asuka had returned on this episode and helped her win the match, okay, that would have worked because you're spoiling one, person coming, but the surprise is the other bigger star also coming. But spoiler alert, that did not happen.
Yeah, I mean, the reason they would give is you have to follow the social channels because you'll get exclusive stuff there. That's why they do the Kevin Owens stuff. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff that's social only is you got to follow the channels to get all the news. I agree. If you had just saved it for television, it would have been better. It would have felt like a bigger deal that Kairi Sane came back. At the same time, it's not Asuka. Kairi Sane, not the biggest, most important person in the world. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
By the way, subscribers are buymeacoffee.com/gettingover have been reading multiple updates about Kairi and Asuka over the last couple of months. Would not expect the latter's return to be too far behind at this juncture is pretty much all I'm going to say. So let's move to this other triple threat qualifier, Rhea Ripley against Kairi and Zoe Stark. We have a lot to get into before we actually discuss this match. Ripley got a massive pop just by showing up on screen backstage. The crowd went crazy for her. Sane got to use her pirate-themed entrance, which you haven't heard many times because she was immediately put into damage control after she got it. It actually sounded, let's call it, good for Def Rebel, even if it could have hit a little bit harder. And she threw booty into the crowd, gold coins into the crowd, and got a decent pop for doing so. Just seconds into the match, Stark did her signature springboard missile dropkick, and she completely blew out her knee. A trainer ran into the ring. WWE went right to commercial. Zoe was screaming, which was heart-wrenching to hear, especially when you remember her injury history that she previously hurt this knee. I think she tore her ACL and MCL previously. I felt so bad for her. What happened here is that Kairi was on the other side of the ring, yet Zoe jumped anyway. Like, she didn't wait for her to kind of transverse a third of the way into the ring. That was too far. So when she landed, rather than hitting her with both feet, she hit her with one, and the other leg planted and crumpled underneath her. This was her first TV match wrestling, Zoe, in 6 months as a singles performer. She previously had some tag team matches. She tore that ACL, and like I said, I think the MCL as well, in the same knee previously. That is obviously the concern here, that they're retorn, but it could be myriad other things. It could be a patella and a dislocated kneecap. I mean, LCL, there's a million different parts of the knee that could get torn or brutalized. Her taking a fall like that, the way she screamed told me it was more significant than a ligament tear, but let's hope it's as little as it possibly could be. It was a terrible thing to see live, an absolutely brutal injury. Obviously, our best wishes go out to Zoe for, first of all, recovering at all, but hopefully a speedy recovery. It is not lost on me that all of Pure Fusion Collective is now down and out. Zoe injured, Sonya Deville not renewed, and then Shayna Baszler released all weeks apart. That is extremely rough stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was brutal to watch. Camera cut away for a bit. You could still hear it. Then they go to commercial. Cole explaining that she, had injured that knee before. It provided some good context on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I thought commentary handled the best they could in the situation. And, as of right now, we don't know what the issue is, but really sucks. Really hope it's best case scenario for Zoe. Absolutely.
Yeah. We've seen this in athletics a lot, in football, especially what we cover. They need the swelling to go down before they can do an MRI. And then once they do the MRI, they can be pretty quick to decide on what to do surgically. If it's a ligament tear, they can take their time theoretically and just schedule it when they want. If it's more serious than that, they may have to go into the knee sooner and faster. So, we'll update as certainly we find out, and I'm sure others will probably have more quicker, let's say, reports on this than we probably will. But nevertheless, we'll update you on social media at Getting Overcast and on Twitter and at Getting Over on Blue Sky. So this match continued one-on-one, which actually created intrigue because going into it, I thought Kairi was going to win and that Zoe was going to take the fall. Ripley caught Kairi flying with an anti-air kick to the chest. Kairi escaped Riptide, hit a spinning back fist plus a sliding forearm. Rhea blocked insane elbow with her feet. They traded blows. Ripley ducked another spinning back fist, landing a headbutt and Riptide for the win. Now, I presume WWE did not change the Money in the Bank booking on the fly, so I'm sure Ripley was always supposed to win the match. Having her beat Kairi in her return obviously sucks, but it's circumstantial, and they called the match on the fly. You got to give them credit, because the match wasn't that special, but they put on a pretty damn good match, given that they had to call it on the fly, and there's clearly a language barrier between the two. You want a big star in Ripley in a match like Money in the Bank on a show like Money in the Bank, but it is annoying that Kairi was brought back to not compete in the ladder match. Circumstantial good, but good nonetheless.
Yeah, circumstantial good. That's got to be a really tough spot. Absolutely, to kind of figure out what you're doing from there. Rhea brings definite star power to the match. You know, every time with the Money in the Bank, it's like, do you put all the up and comers in it, or there was a period where they put all the big names in it? You probably need a mix of both. And so Rhea being your biggest star, she's not in the world title picture right now. It makes sense. Kairi's music. So she had used this version before, but just briefly, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Because it was pretty good. Like, I didn't mind it. It's not as good as her previous pirate music, which was really good.
Yes.
And I have on my playlist on my phone, but it wasn't bad. So, or it wasn't more than bad. It was good. It just wasn't as good as the other one. So good to know. Where Kairi goes from here, I don't know. I mean, like, we'll see what happens with Asuka, but overall, between the two, good.
Yeah, certainly not as much of a downgrade theme-wise as like Sheamus got. He just got absolutely brutalized. But certainly a downgrade from her original NXT theme, but much, much better than most Def Rebel themes. Solo Sikoa led Jacob Fatu and Jeff Cobb to the ring. The first time that's happened recently, that Sikoa was out in front despite Jacob being champion or competing in matches. Jacob took his own path, though, to the canvas. Sikoa introduced Cobb as JC, so it sounded like they were going with the JC Mateo name, which kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Solo said Roman Reigns ruined everything for the family by losing to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40, but he would win Money in the Bank and bring glory back to the family. Again, they don't have a faction name. Fatu tore the mic away when Sikoa started doing his own lines. Then Sikoa interrupted him and did the lines himself anyway. He said, "I love you, Jacob," in Fatu's tone, and then asked him to reciprocate. But when Jacob did, he did it monotone. Sikoa egged him on to do it right. Tension started rising. LA Knight's music hit. He wore a Hulk Hogan-looking tank top, got a quick lick in before running away, which is maybe the smartest babyface move I've seen all year because he easily would have lost the numbers game 1-on-3 and he doesn't have any real friends. The segment was Solo at his comedic best. The guy is such a ridiculous character when he wants to be, and it was great to see him finally get back to that. Like when he showed up in the crowd with the tickets a year ago. The dude is hilarious. The back and forth between he and Jacob, it was perfect to show that there's dissension and dissatisfaction in the ranks. But blowing it up this quickly would have been silly. The only part that bothered me was JC just kind of standing there. Solo did nothing to put him over and explain his background. The dude is a literal Olympic wrestler. Mention how dangerous he is and what he does for their group now that he's with them. And the group still doesn't have a name, by the way. But he was completely irrelevant as part of this segment, despite making his debut 6 days prior. Couple that with saying half of his new name as opposed to his entire name. And I thought that was just a disappointing part of this. It wasn't enough to change my grade because I loved what Solo and Jacob did. So it's good and it was entertaining, but it left a lot to be desired in terms of getting JC over.
Not only that, but JC, Jeff Cobb, he looked small.
He is
in the
small.
ring.
Yeah.
In a way that he didn't on Backlash for whatever reason, but I don't know if the t-shirt didn't help because we don't see his big muscles. You know, all we see is the thinner, skinnier forearms and whatnot. It'd be better for him to wear tank tops, I think, to show off the guns and everything, and highlight his features. Wearing a black t-shirt hides all of them. And when they call him JC and not his full name, JC Mateo, all I could think about was JC Chazé from I think he was NSYNC. So that was in my head. So it could have done a lot more putting Jeff Cobb over. Other than that, I liked everything else. To your point, I had it written down. Solo showing so much more personality, and it doesn't feel forced. You know, it doesn't feel like he's a guy coming out of his shell. No, he's got that charisma. You can see it. Like him getting in Jacob's face and doing the stuff. Like, I'm into it. I'm interested. He's very charismatic and interesting on television. And so I'd love to get more of that Solo, not necessarily comedic Solo, but like kind of like sarcastic, energetic. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I love what Sikoa has become when they allow him to do stuff like that. Yeah, I love when he gets an opportunity to just be a cornball out there. It's really him at his best. And hopefully that's the character that he eventually runs with and turns babyface. I think he'd be a great babyface in a character like that long-term in WWE. It sounds weird for a big Samoan to be like that, but I think it would play. Later backstage, Andrade gassed up Rey Fenix, who said he's ready for the next level. Sikoa and his crew were looking for Knight but couldn't find him. So that led to the first men's Money in the Bank qualifier, Fenix, Jimmy Uso, and Sikoa. The guys walked Solo down to the ring, which was nonsensical because the women were barred from ringside on the same show. And I know that Nick Aldis hates Secret Harvest because he hates Chelsea Green, but if you're going to ban the women from ringside, you got to ban the men from ringside as well. On their way down, Fatu stared down Drew McIntyre, who was exiting after the promo we mentioned earlier. Jimmy cut his best backstage promo since being a singles wrestler. Didn't even yeet. Hugely positive there. Solo tried to get his brother to team up early. That didn't work. Phoenix hit a great double crossbody off a top rope outside. Sikoa caught him flying inside for a spinning solo, then did the same to Jimmy into the announce table. The referee entirely missed Phoenix trying to pin Sikoa. Phoenix avoided Samoan Spike with Jimmy aiding a crucifix pin with a super kick before breaking it. Phoenix hit Adios Amigo, but ate a spear for a false finish. Fatu distracted Uso, allowing Sikoa to hit Samoan Spike over the ropes, but Phoenix took advantage with Adios Amigo. However, when JC jumped on the apron, Sikoa used that distraction to hit Samoan Spike and get the win. Solo's first win in Chris, what feels like forever, straight up floored that both Phoenix is not in Money in the Bank and that Sikoa is going to be in a ladder match. That is absolutely not his style of fight. But what this booking tells me is that Penta will probably be in the match and them wrestling one another simply would not work. And Phoenix will probably be on Worlds Collide earlier in the day anyway. Solo also needed this way more comparatively than anyone else in the match. Good match. Hardly the best on the show. In fact, I might even say it's the worst on the show because it was so strong in ring on Friday night.
Yeah, I'll still give this a good. Solo needed the win. He really, you got to give these guys wins somewhere. This makes sense. Phoenix is so new still. He can go back and forth. And like you said, Worlds Collide. It's going to make a lot of sense. When LA Knight comes out at the end, is kind of the whole deal at the end. He's wearing shorts and knee pads. And I'm like, what is this look? This looks terrible. And then we figure out what it's for. But this was fine. Made sense overall. Jimmy's just kind of nothing right now, which is tough. Mm-hmm. But cannon fodder to someone like Solo getting a win was needed.
I got to tell you, man, I kind of like that Jimmy is nothing. Like you'll remember.
Helps Jey.
Yeah, it helps Jey stand out. And also you'll remember on the road to WrestleMania where they started trying to like put him in the US title picture and they tried to give him stuff. And he had matches that were better than Jay's matches, apples to apples. But he just doesn't have a gimmick that translates. Like, I know Jay's gimmick is mostly a word, but it's also his aura and the atmosphere he brings when he enters the arena, the entrance music, all of it. Jimmy, it has that like carnival music. I know that others don't believe it sounds like that.
Like his
but again, but the point is, it doesn't lead to anything, right? It doesn't make you think like, oh my God, I'm really excited for this guy coming to the ring. Whereas that entrance music for Jey does. And he wears those like weird cut off basketball jerseys with a number on them for some reason. The gear doesn't look good. You can't have them both succeed as singles simultaneously. And I just kind of like that he's a background character. It sucks for him, but I think once Jey ends this World Heavyweight Championship run, I have a feeling they're going to reform the tag team, and that will drastically help the tag team division. So if that's the direction they go, I understand why Jimmy is kind of being kept cold right now, and it just feels like the right decision.
Agree.
So Knight attacked the heels after this match, using a chair to ward them off while standing on the announce table. Aldis came out, immediately decided they would fight in a match because that's how stuff is settled in WWE. So we had Knight against JC, who was referred to by his first name by every wrestler and Barrett, until Tessitore finally, a few minutes into the match, said, JC Mateo. He wrestled in street clothes and threw Knight over the ropes with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. LA avoided an attempted splash into the ring post. Mateo finally got pops, hitting a twisting back suplex and a perfect standing moonsault, a signature, yet still insane move for a guy his size and shape. Knight actually hit a springboard turnaround crossbody ringside into the other heels, and when he came springing back inside, Mateo caught him off the ropes with Tour of the Islands, his finisher, for the 1-2-3. I did not expect Knight to lose this match the way it was going, But damn, great decision and 100% the right call to put over the new guy in an excused fashion. I similarly did not expect the storyline to get so much time on SmackDown, but start to finish, it was entertaining. It was the best we've gotten from these guys in weeks. So I got to hit this with a third straight good for this long-term story, or this, I should say, extended story beat on SmackDown.
Definite good. Of course, JC was going to get the win. He had to. It's his first match. He's back. He's here. I do think a big part of the energy around this whole storyline is LA Knight. Like, the crowd is really into him. He cuts good promos. He's got energy around him. And it's adding to everything Solo and Fatu in this group is doing. And I don't know if it was originally the plan to kind of just keep LA Knight around here, but whether or not they decided to later or what, they are feeding off of each other in a really smart way that is giving it more time on SmackDown, and they're making the most of it. And there's a lot of energy and heat and excitement around this whole group of people doing this stuff. This was good.
So that wraps up the Money in the Bank qualifiers for the week. Chris, I know you're in New York. You're a little antsy to get out of the hotel room, right? And go see the city a little bit.
Yeah, I got to go talk to all these Knicks fans or something. The energy is palpable for your Knickerbockers this week. It'll be fun. Yeah,
extremely excited to watch it. Go enjoy the Big Apple. Silver King is going to take this show the rest of the way. Penta and AJ Styles fought Finn Balor and JD McDonough on Raw. It didn't hit me until the bell rang that we were actually getting Penta and Styles teaming together, which straight up,
That's cool.
They looked great at the bell with stereo slingshot topes. Styles had Balor in the calf crusher. McDonough tried to break it with a splash. AJ moved away and he nailed Finn. AJ immediately caught him with Styles Clash for a surprise falls finish. Then he flipped off the apron for an inverted DDT on JD, only to get run into the ring post by Carlito. Penta got the hot tag, delivering sacrifice on Balor. McDonough ate a Mexican destroyer off the steps ringside, which was great, incredible sell. But with the referee distracted, El Grande Americano grabbed Penta's mask from behind for a loaded mask headbutt to the back of his head, allowing Balor to hit coup de grace. And yes, shockingly, get the 1-2-3. Lots of thoughts here, but we have a long show, so I'm going to go fast. Excellent match. 4 stars A-. Thought it was the best match of the night for Raw, which, again, match quality was good, but it paled in comparison to SmackDown. Loved the finish. Inventive way to use the loaded mask to the back of the head. Penta and Styles were phenomenal, pun intended, as a tag team. I could legitimately see them as champions. They would be excellent together, but of course, I highly doubt that happens. It worked perfectly. McDonough remains arguably the top seller in the entire company. He showed out once again. Balor winning was great for me personally, but WWE's long-term booking of Finn, it has absolutely killed the fans' interest in him. Crowds generally get up for heels they like when they're about to win matches or it seems like they might. Balor was rolling late here, and you could just hear the indifference both in that moment and in the finish. The awful, ill-fitting Judgment Day theme playing afterwards certainly did not help at all. It's great that Paul Levesque is trying to do something with Balor. I've been begging him to do it and for Vince McMahon to do it for years. But his character is going to need a lot of work to get fans to truly buy into him again after we have been beaten down so often over the last however many years. Despite all of that, like I said, the match was fantastic. Obviously good. Judgment Day commiserated backstage in their clubhouse when Balor brought Perez into the room, suggesting Dominic Mysterio may have been right about adding another member, saying he has 3 guys supporting him as Intercontinental Champion, while Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez as Women's Tag Team Champions, they don't have anyone. They were obviously hesitant, but Roxy gifted Dom a box of chicken nuggets. Let me clarify. She handed Dude a bunch of frozen chicken nuggets in one of those cardboard boxes that you use when you give someone a button-down shirt as a Christmas gift. And I'm sitting here first of all, chica, hombre likes tendies, not nugs. Second of all, these things are frozen Tyson crap, not fresh fried tenders. And doesn't Dom have a Wingstop sponsorship? And third, there's no ranch for Dude. Even though, to be frank, and let me make this very clear, Honey Mustard straight runs over ranch every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But still, everyone knows Dom is a ranch guy. Then she gives Carlito an apple, and I'm like, what about JD? How about some ice for his massive head, given he took that destroyer? But he seemed okay with it. Raquel was the only one displeased. It was made clear that Perez is not in the faction, but she's there to help when they need it. I enjoyed this, as I do most Judgment Day segments. It not only built storyline around the group, it gave Roxy something to do immediately besides her briefcase pursuit, gave her a side storyline. I mean, if you're Dom, how do you turn down a hot chick with a box of fried chicken, even if it's not Dendy's? Mission impossible as far as I'm concerned. Roxy and Liv would be a fantastic first feud for her. The logic Balor presented to bring her in was perfectly sound, and Raquel sold the entire deal with her glares. She has been much better showing character of late. Good all around. We had Fraxium against DIY on SmackDown. The faces did their 4 tope suicidas with Tommaso Ciampa literally flying over the barricade into some fans. Nathan Frazier again took a crowd from muted to attentive with his hot tag. Frazier missed the Phoenix Splash, got caught with an anti-air super kick, inverted on a springboard, plus a fairy tale ending super kick right to the face for a broken fall. Frazier then ate a Project Ciampa, which was delivered perfectly. Fraxium combined for a superplex, moved into a tandem brainbuster super kick, with Ciampa breaking the fall via running knee. Fans were, I think, accidentally muted for chanting, "This is awesome," which, come on. This is getting out of hand with the muting. Ciampa got Axiom's mask halfway off as he had Johnny Gargano in a submission, but he ultimately caught Gargano in a sit-down pinning combination to get the win, and Motor City Machine Guns saved a post-match attack. Excellent, excellent match. DIY and Axiom in particular bumped their asses off. Frazier was the MVP. It's clear he is resonating with fans. He's a younger, faster Seth Rollins, an obvious comparison given Seth trained Nathan. Credit to these veteran teams for putting the youngsters over in such a significant way. This started a bit slow, but holy hell, did it build up. The crowd was wild at the end, popping for all 4 dudes and even reacting when DIY was landing some big moves. I'm ultimately at 4 stars A-. I was extremely close to going higher. The booking of Fraxium has been pretty perfect to this point. This was good. The Street Profits applauded Fraxium for their win backstage. Montez Ford, I've never said this before. He was wearing a double-breasted silk shirt tucked into his pants. Folks, decisions are made every day. Ford got Fraxium going with an announcement that they're going to get a tag team title match, not at the PLE, not at Saturday night's main event, but next week on SmackDown. Other than TLC, if there was a tag team match that deserved to be on a special event, it's this one. Fraxium had match of the night efforts weekly on NXT TV and NXT PLEs. Not putting this on one of those 2 shows, frankly, it's a missed opportunity to spotlight the tag team division, especially given it was left off WrestleMania. They could easily put this on the Money in the Bank card, and they probably should have. Just to be clear before we move on, the Profits absolutely have to retain the titles here, and they need to win the match squeaky clean. Fraxium, they need to face adversity and get knocked down a peg after going on a blistering run since debuting. It's going to be the right move, not just for the Profits, but for Fraxium long-term as well. Aleister Black fought Carmelo Hayes in a rematch. Circling back to our entrance notes last week, Black's board was more hidden in the darkness, though you could still see it at the very end when he was fully raised, but it was better. His entrance was also adjusted with his name coming into view on the barricade as he walked toward the steel steps, which I thought was a really cool addition. But as we talk about, it's another example of WWE still tweaking presentation a month into someone's debut or return. Melo cut off Miz speaking backstage, dropping an extremely confident promo on Black, easily the best he's spoken since joining the main roster. It made me want him to win the match even more than I already did. Fun start between them with counters and avoided Black Mass, and Miz helping Melo avoid a moonsault so he could hit a seated tope. Black later landed it, plus a great crouch Meteora off the ropes and a German suplex bridge. Melo landed a springboard basement DDT, and he hit a lifted cutter later in the match. Miz got on the apron himself giving instructions. That distracted Hayes, nearly led to a fall. Black hit some big elbows. Hayes answered with first 48, unfortunately not named by commentary. Aleister began lifting Melo's head for a Black Mass, but Miz interrupted for an attack DQ, only to eat Black Mass himself again. Hayes took out Black's knee from behind and landed nothing but net to end the segment as the lone man standing. WWE, they've been relying far too much on these disqualification and distraction finishes lately, way more than any year prior under Triple H's creative, and that's straight up frustrating. But it did not completely ruin what was an excellent match between these guys. This was a prime opportunity for Melo to get a runaway win with a pinning combination or something to truly raise his profile. Instead, he ended it on his mediocre finisher, but it didn't actually result in a 1-2-3. Borderline B+ A- despite the shenanigans. Not what I wanted. Hopefully he actually gets a win sooner than later. And I really wouldn't mind if the third match he beats Black and they do a fourth and Black gets his win back. This was good. Surprisingly, Shinsuke Nakamura cut a tape promo on Night saying he hasn't changed since they feuded over the United States title. Then he called out Black, saying he did not fear him because he hides in the smoke and mirrors. He actually fears the darkness. This was ahead of a Money in the Bank qualifier for next week. This screams Black as the winner, but it's an absolutely loaded bout for my taste. Three guys I love. Light good for the promo style and content, but obviously it only accomplished so much. Santos Escobar and Angel backstage discussed not being able to find Berto, with Escobar saying Berto is missing the bigger picture and forgetting about the importance of loyalty. Santos said he's secured an opportunity that will allow them to make a statement, but it requires Angel finding Berto and bringing him home so they can have a sit-down dinner. Angel protested. Escobar said standing up for something bigger than yourself, something special, will scare people, but he's always seen loyalty from Angel since day one, and he doesn't want to lose that just because Berto is being selfish. Light good because this was short, but it was probably the most compelling Escobar has been since arriving on the main roster because he's actually being given a storyline to sink his teeth into. The sit-down dinner was music to my ears. We talked about last week wanting some of those old Legado del Fantasma segments back in on the main roster that we saw previously in NXT. I presume this is about a match for Worlds Collide, maybe a AAA tag team title match, but I'm legitimately interested in seeing where it's going. Adam Pearce granted Akira Tozawa a one-on-one match with Rusev next week now that he's been medically cleared. Chad Gable and Ivy Nile came in, laughing that Rusev would end his career just like he put Otis down for good. Gable asked Pearce for Money in the Bank qualifying matches for both of them. New Day, who were there talking to Grayson Waller earlier, popped in saying they hate the War Raiders. And that was it. Rusev later cut a tape promo on Tozawa saying his only goal is to fix him, but because he challenged him and listened to the fans, he got his attention, and now he'll be murked before he's forgiven. Credit where it's due, another excellent promo from Rusev for the second week in a row. The rest of it was nothing. Rusev is good. The rest of it, I'll say bad, because I was kind of frustrated by it all. Later in the show, it was announced the tag team title match next week would be a triple threat, which made no sense whatsoever. Did the Creed brothers not straight up win either a number one contendership or what seemed like a de facto number one contendership over the Raiders 2 weeks ago? Why would the Raiders get to join this match when the Creeds beat them clean? Why aren't Balor and McDonough getting a shot? All three teams have one win since WrestleMania. The logic gap really bothered me here, but maybe they explain it next week. Sheamus fought Waller. I don't believe Waller got an entrance. Austin Theory had a haircut like he was Buff Bagwell, and he was dressed like he was Stone Cold Steve Austin and some combination of the American Badass Undertaker from the 90s. It was a really odd look for dude. He talked shit to Waller during the match, actually got loud Austin Theory chants from the crowd. Waller hit a rolling flatliner. Sheamus caught him flying with an anti-air pump knee and did a guillotine over his shoulder. It looked great, but it ended poorly because it kind of just dropped him on the canvas. Then he brought him back to the Dublin Smile. When Waller tried to do 10 beats, Sheamus grabbed him for white noise, hanging him off the top rope. I feel like that was a botch, not entirely sure. Theory stopped Waller from leaving, laughing as 10 beats were delivered by Sheamus before a bro kick ended the match. The crowd started kind of dead, but they loved the pacing and they loved the booking with Theory actively helping Sheamus. This went longer than I anticipated, but all three guys were better off for it. Lower card match and storyline at this point, but I gotta tell you, it was good. And I believe we can now expect Theory and Waller to finally split up after what feels like, a year, 18 months of teases. I maintain that Theory should be turning on Waller and joining Rollins' crew. It makes way, way too much sense. You could even tag him with Breaker and have them go after the titles. But in this storyline, Waller is the heel and Theory is the face, and it makes that happening difficult. So we're just going to have to see how this goes down. And that really wraps up the good, the bad, and the ugly, and our entire show this week. Obviously, there was a ton to talk about across both Raw and SmackDown and previewing WWE Saturday night's main event. Just a reminder, we will have an instant analysis podcast Saturday night as soon as that show goes off the air. You can vote in our pre and post show polls, get episode drops, news, analysis, and all that good stuff by following us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews that we conduct, and video clips from past interviews. Please remember, here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
It's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We'll be back Thursday talking NXT and AEW, and then on Saturday with our WWE Saturday Night's Main Event instant analysis. For Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.